everybody, my name is Kim. Welcome to my video review of the Canon R7 camera. Now, to start with, I just want to lay the groundwork out here on my particular video review. My video review is going to be about using the Canon R7 with some of the lesser expensive EF mount lens, not RF mount lens, and using it in full automatic mode. Now, I know this is blasphemy to a lot of you photographers out there, which means that you might just want to stop watching the video at this point. But for all of you other amateurs out there like myself, I'm coming from a point-and-shoot camera. I had the Sony ZV-1 I was using for vlogging until it started having a problem where it was literally the lens was moving in and out on itself, just like it had lost its mind. I have a video of that I'll insert here so you can see what I'm talking about. So I decided that had I had a camera that didn't have a fixed lens in it, it had a removable lens, that I'd be better off. So that's what prompted me to start looking at a replacement camera, and that's when I got interested in the Canon R7, which is what I'm using right now. So a couple of things I want to touch on real quick. I'm using a Rode micro shotgun for the sound. I'm currently shooting this on the 10-18 Canon EF lens, the 4.5 to 5.6 IS with STM. I'm using it with the stabilizer on, and I'm using it with IBIS on as well, holding it with a small, actually the Sony handle that I use for my Sony vlogging camera is screwed around the bottom of it. So that's what we're talking about here. That's what I'm using. I'm in full auto mode right now. Now, my EF adapter, I do want to touch on that real quick. My EF adapter is by a company called Meike, I believe. It's M-A-I-K-E, and it has an adjustable, well, it has a spot where you can put an ND filter in the actual adapter itself instead of having to screw one on the end of the lens. And the reason I like that is because all three of my lenses so far are EF mount lenses. So I can keep the ND filter basically in the camera at all times on the body instead of on the end of the lens. That way when I change out lenses, I still have my ND filter. And that can also be removed in a clear filter inserted in its place, especially if you're going to be like inside shooting. You obviously don't need an ND filter when you're shooting inside. So there you go with that. I am going to walk out here into bright sunlight, show you how the camera looks in bright sunlight with this lens. Keep in mind that the R7 is what's called a crop sensor lens. It's an APS-C lens. It's mirrorless by Canon. And the problem with that is when you buy, as an example, say you bought this camera with the kit lens, the 18 to 150, what it would look like vlogging would be like this. Because this is the 18 millimeter, but cropped it becomes a 24 millimeter, which is basically the starting point of the 18 to 150 lens for vlogging. This is the reason that instead of buying the camera with the kit 18 to 150, I went ahead and downsized and got the 10 to 18 EF lens instead, which I think we got plenty of light right now. I mean, we're standing in the shade. It looks pretty good. Actually, I have my ND filter. My ND filter is turned all the way down, so this is as open as this ND filter is going to get. But that's why I got it, was for vlogging. I'm holding it pretty much arm's length away from me right now, and there's a pretty good field of view back there, so if we had something prettier to see in the background, you would have more of that than you would me, because if I was just using the standard lens that came with the kit camera, it would be like this. All you'd have is just a talking head. The other two lenses I have that I'm going to talk about later on in this video is going to be the 35 millimeter Canon EF lens, which actually works out to be a little over 50 millimeters, which is my portrait lens I'm going to use for when I'm indoors shooting the family, stuff like that. And the nice thing about that camera too is the fact that it's an f2 aperture, so it collects a lot of light, so it's good for indoor shooting. And then the other lens that I bought is the Tamron 18 to 200. That's a pretty big spread on a telephoto, and I think it starts at 5.3, so it doesn't have a big wide aperture opening. But you know, when you're outdoors shooting a lot of stuff, you don't really need it, right? But what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to go see a Christmas light festival, and I'm going to use all 3 of these lenses at that Christmas lights festival. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about the way the pictures turned out on that. Keep in mind, I'm going to be shooting only in the automatic mode. And the reason for that is, number one, I don't know a lot about aperture settings and shutter speeds and all of that, as I'm sure you don't either, and I've seen a lot of videos on that. I know that you're not supposed to, you know, when you have a camera like this, you should be using all the functionality, right? But they put the automatic mode in there for a reason, and it's for people like us, right? As I get more comfortable with the camera and the settings, then I'm going to start experimenting with auto ISO, and then being able to do aperture priority, shutter speed priority, that kind of thing. And I'll work on that in future videos, and hopefully if you stick with me, we'll learn that together. But I'm talking to the amateur right now. If you're an amateur, you just bought this camera, and you don't know what all the buttons do, well, welcome to my world, because that's what we're going to talk about here in the next couple of videos. So I'm going to walk out here in the bright sunlight real quick. Let's just see how this ND filter works on this camera. With this lens, adapter I was telling you about, the Meike, the RF, or the M-A-I-K-E, EF to RF adapter. And I'm going to go ahead and start turning the wheel. And this is, again, mounted in between the lens and the body itself. And you'll see it's changing up pretty good. It's getting darker, as you can see. A little more. Camera's trying to compensate. There we go. Camera's still trying to compensate. That's the camera opening back up there. Now I'm going to slowly go back the other way, and right away you can see what's happening here. It takes a minute for the camera to compensate back. I'm going to open it back up all the way again. So that's all the way open there again on that. So that works pretty well. I like the idea of that. And then if I want to take off this lens and put on my 35mm, then I'm already set up for my with my ND filter. I don't have to keep changing it out or replacing it, and they're all different sizes anyway on all these different lenses you get. So this way you've just got one thing to worry about. There's also a clear filter that comes with, and then I believe you can buy a circular polarizer filter as well. I'll have all that information in the comment section down below. So stay tuned. There's going to be a part 2 to this video where I'm going to have the Christmas lights, and we'll discuss that as well. So thanks a lot for watching. If you like what you're seeing, press the like button, hit the subscribe, and let me know. And I'll see you in the next video.